A blessed good evening to all of you. We welcome you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Welcome to our missionary service this evening, and it's going to take the form of a lecture discussion. And this evening we give God thanks that we are here. All of you who are joining us online, I pray that you will join in this service and be blessed in everything that we do. We're going to stand together and have a word of prayer. Let us pray. Eternal God and most righteous Father which art in heaven, we give you thanks, Lord, for bringing us here another time to thy house. We give you thanks, Lord, for everyone gathered here and those who could not, those who are joining us online. Lord, I pray that you would grant to them the same blessing that we receive here today. Remember those, Lord, who are sick. I pray that you would touch their bodies, Lord, and that you would restore them by your will, and that, Lord Jesus, throughout the night, Lord, and the week ahead, Lord, that they would see your hand of mercy, your hand of healing working in their bodies. Lord, I pray that together as we come to worship you, that we will worship you in spirit and in truth, and we will say it's a good thing to be in the house of the Lord. Bless us all together as we worship you this day. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Assisting me in this service this evening will be our Sister Carmetta, and I invite her now to come and give you the first song. Sister Carmetta.
A blessed good evening to all. We begin by singing number 187 in the youth book, Christ the King. We have come into his house, gathered in his name to worship him. We have come into his house, gathered in his name to worship him. Number 187.
We have come into his
this time we'll go into united prayer. May all our prayers be lifted on high. You may be seated.
The next song we'll be singing this evening is number 745 from the Sankey. Count your blessings. When upon life's billows you are tempest tossed, when you are discouraged thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. At the end of this song, we'll stand for our evening's lesson.
Thank
surprised what God has done when you start to count your blessings. Name them one by one. This evening's lesson is taken from Ecclesiastes chapter 11, reading from verse 1 to the end. Ecclesiastes chapter 11. Cast thy bread upon the water, for thou shalt find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, and also to 8, for thou knowest not what evil shall be upon the earth. If the cloud be full of rain, they empty themselves upon the earth. And if the tree fall towards the south or towards the north, in the place where the tree falleth, there it shall be. He that observeth the wind shall not sow. He that regardeth the clouds shall not reap. As thou knowest not what is the way of the Spirit, nor how the bones do grow in the womb of her that is with child, even so thou knowest not the works of God, who maketh all. In the morning sow thy seed, and in the evening withhold not thy hand. For thou knowest not whether shall prosper either this or that, or whether they both shall be alike good. Truly, the light is sweet and a pleasant thing. It is for the eyes to behold the sun. But if a man live many years and rejoiceth in them, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. Therefore, remove sorrow from thine heart, and put away evil from thy flesh. For childhood and youth are vanity. This is the word of God.
For us, at this time, while our offering is being collected, we will sing number 219 from the youth book, Oh, I Want to See Him. As I journey through the land, singing as I go, pointing souls to Calvary, to the crimson floor. Many arrows pierce my soul from without within, but my Lord lead me on, through him I must win. Number 219. Amen. At this time, we ask our brother Trevor to pray for our offering.
Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you for another time in your presence, another time that we can come, Lord, to your house of prayer, Lord God, to fellowship with our brothers and sisters, Lord. I pray, Lord, you continue to touch us, Lord, the ones that are sick among us, Lord. You continue to heal your people, Lord God. Lord, we thank you for the energy, Lord, that you give us, Lord, and the job you create, Lord, so that we can give back part of our earnings to you, Lord. We pray that you bless this offering, sanctify it in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. At this time, we have our notices.
Blessed good afternoon to all, and welcome to our evening service. A special welcome to our guests. These are the notices for this week. Tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. is our prayer service using the Google Meet platform. The youth will be in charge of this service. On Wednesday at 5, and then again on Friday at 5, there will be practice for the children who attended the Shalem daycare. Wednesday at 7:15 p.m. is our roll call and covenant service. On Friday at 7:30, it's our youth service. Saturday, our Saturday sale continues at 9:30 a.m. Our fundraising sales, and all are welcome to come and join us and participate. Next Sunday, 9 a.m. is our Sunday school, followed by our morning's worship and Holy Communion at 10. And some advance notices. On Sunday, the 11th of September at 10 a.m. is our daycare 20th anniversary service, and all are welcome to that service as well. And then Sunday, the 25th, until Friday, the 30th of September, is our annual rally. Those are the notices. I turn the service back over to our co-chairpersons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Clark, for giving us the notices. And as I said before, this is our first missionary service for the year. And we want to thank all of you for coming out and joining us, and those who could not make it physically for joining us online this evening. At this time, I invite Evangelist Stephen to introduce to you our speaker for this evening. They would have gone back so many years. I only know a little bit about him, so Evangelist Stephen will come at this time and introduce to you our speaker for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Shelley. When she said go back many years, people may think we're old, but no, we're... The important thing and the real thing about any person is that person's relationship with God who created him. That is the all and the be-all of everything. And if he was not a man that is zealous after the work of God, but I wouldn't even care if you hear him or not. Because the Bible said there's a way that seems right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. So today we will have someone who will talk to us about the National Insurance Scheme, something that almost all of us, except for him, will not even be thinking much about. But they got something called reality check. And because people are now mostly thinking about it, because, as you said, Barbados is now what? An aging society. We are now thinking about what will happen when we reach that age of 67 or 65 or whatever age, you know. So I am glad that at this time, before things crash, that we can think about it, because in reality, I was in church all the years, the first time that any person ever came to this church talking anything about national insurance. Sister Clark even knows something about that too, right? But for me. So like I said, He's a man of God. And that's why even after he retired about 8 years ago, right? About 8 years ago, he retired from the national insurance, but they will not let him go. So he still has to go back every now and then and help start. And that's what the scripture teaches us. The women help the younger ones, the big men help the younger boys. So there's not generation gap in Christianity. So he goes back and makes sure the younger people understand what is happening. So even though he retired, yet he is still in the house of God, and he's still, as a Christian, wherever he goes, he still carries that Christian influence. So at this time, we want to welcome our brother Stephen. I know the second word, Strickland. Stephen, and a strict person, but yet a wonderful person. Let's all welcome him as he comes and delivers us his lecture.
Thank you very much. Now, as was just stated, this is your first evangelical meeting for the year. From the time I came to the door, I was reminded that many years ago, there was a cricket match between Compton Pentecostal House of Prayer and Shalem Evangelical, and we got beaten. I was reminded of that. But you see, I was never really much of a cricketer. So when you put me up front this evening, first meeting, and I'm up front, I don't know who would expect that I might be beaten this afternoon, but that's another story. I really want to thank God for the invitation. I pray God's healing power on Brother Barker. We go way back, not this Barker, the other Barker, the pastor, because I would have heard much about his father's relationship with the Kindergarten Pentecostal House of Prayer. My wife was a member there, so that when I started to be part of that church, then Brother Carl would be, and then we had the association. While he was at the Treasury, I am at National Insurance. So I really want to thank God for this opportunity to be here to share. Now, we've been hearing a lot about National Insurance in the news and so forth. And I'm glad that it has come to this, because it has awoken a lot of Barbadians to reality. Reality. This is, I think, about my 5th lecture for the year. This is the first in person. The others have been by Zoom. And this was prior to the whole issue of pension reform came up. But I would want to start with the, as I normally start, that in Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6, it says, God's people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. And we think this is only in relation to the spiritual side. It is knowledge, full stop. Someone said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And it's very, very expensive in Barbados for many individuals who do not know national insurance legislation. And I would hope that you will be change agents in helping others to understand. Now, national insurance is governed by a board. And as I spoke at Alexander School a couple of 2 weeks ago, the National Insurance Board is is constituted along ILO standards, whereby all employees in Barbados are represented on the board by the NUPW and the Barbados Workers Union. Because they are the employers' side of it also, the Employers' Confederation, the Hotel Association sit on the board representing the employers in Barbados. Because it's a social security scheme, the chief level officers sit on the board. And because it's a finance institution, the director of finance sits on the board. So of the 9-member board, 6 are supposed to make sure that the 3 politically appointed individuals, because when government changes at any time, all other boards members must tender their resignation. The National Insurance Board, only 3 of the 9 tendered their resignation. So it's very, very unfortunate at this juncture in our history where the National Insurance Board have allowed the fund of the National Insurance Department to be managed, and they were managing the fund from 1967, to be used and managed in this manner. And because of a lack of foresight, to some extent, is a situation, that's why we are in the situation that we are in. And I make no apologies for what I said, because what I said, what I'm saying here, I said at the town hall meeting, and it has been borne out by actuaries and other individuals since then. We've been having a falling birth rate in Barbados for a long while, and an Asian population. So that when other persons said it many years ago, they were castigated. But from way back, we have come to a point right now in Barbados where you have a primary school in Barbados, which has a total population at the school of 40 children, the whole school. Ignatius Bay Primary School has only got about 3 or 4 children entering this year. Their graduation class, years ago, they had 2 class 4s. This year, the class 4 graduating class were 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls. So let us wake up in Barbados and understand that we have a serious, serious birth rate. But we also have a very serious Asian population. My great aunt is 107. So we have to understand that if we are going to finance a scheme, we have to have persons contributing, because we are paying pensioners for a very long time. This is a reality. It didn't start yesterday, but it was very much multiplied around the time we had the 8% pay cut and at the beginning of COVID. So right now, they said that 1 out of 8 self-employed people are actually paying contributions. And let me say this here now, okay? Now, there's this myth in Barbados. So when some people castigated me for my statements in respect of how to get self-employed people to pay contributions, that's fine with me. But the reality is that it is no longer an automatic right that because you're a Barbadian, that you will get a non-contributory pension when you reach 67 if you have not, at present, if you have not paid your contribution. So there are a lot of self-employed people who are waking up at age 67 to the stark reality that when they reach that age, they will be interviewed. And the question is going to be asked, how were you being supported during your lifetime? And if you were self-employed, meaning that if your income was $21 per week or more, then you were self-employed, and the law said you were expected to pay contributions. Very often, your claim for non-contributory will be disallowed. So you will not get a pension in Barbados ever. Let's get these things straight, okay? I'm not political, I am national insurance, okay? So 1, the board has responsibility to manage the fund, and I'm not even getting into certain things this afternoon, sufficient that unfortunately certain decisions were made outside of the decision of the board, whereby national insurance lost $1.6 billion in one instance, and unfortunately now things are in trouble. I'm dealing with the benefits under the scheme and the responsibilities of individuals. So let me start with the responsibilities, okay? I said with self-employed just now, you are expected to pay contributions quarterly, 17.10%, and therefore it will mean then that you must be paying your contributions, as I said, quarterly, and I would suggest you pay them on time, because if you choose to pay in arrears, those contributions may not be used because the system might determine that you are trying to trick the system. So for individuals who are at present 57 and over, who have not paid any contributions, you are going to be in big trouble. For the simple reason, in order to qualify for contributory old age pension, you need at present, and I'm speaking at present because there's so much being said and so forth, things may change and may change for the worse. But at present, you must have paid at least 500 contributions for 10 years. So everybody said, is at 67, if you're at 57, you started, you're in trouble. Because you can't get 500 by 67. So the reality is that from the time you person start to work, I would strongly suggest to you to get your self-employed persons registered, whether they're selling nuts, coconuts, or whatever else. Because if you were gainfully employed, working for $21 per week, you're supposed to pay contributions as a self-employed person, an employed person, a temporary officer, or an appointed officer, or in some cases where you're over 67, employment injury. But I want to start by speaking about the self-employed, because those are the ones who unfortunately are not paying, and the scheme has found itself in trouble because of the volume of persons who are self-employed in Barbados today. Now, there are the persons who, and for the self-employed person, there are only 3 benefits that those persons are not entitled to. Because there's a myth out there only, during the week, I was speaking with this person, and the person was shocked to know that a self-employed person can get sickness benefit. Yes, the only 3 benefits a self-employed person cannot receive. 1, employment injury. 2, unemployment. And 3, severance. For the simple reason that for the unemployment, you need another person to indicate whether the person was laid off, dismissed because of their own misconduct, or they resigned. And they wouldn't have a second person. In the case of employment injury, you would need another individual to be able to indicate that this is something that happened on the job and the person had a right to be doing what they were doing. And 3, for severance, that the job you're doing no longer exists, or that you were laid off for 13 weeks or more, or 16 weeks in a 6-month period. So they're not entitled to those benefits. So, but they're entitled to sickness, invalidity, maternity, old age pensions, the other benefits that are available under the scheme. Now, for self-employed persons, it is important. I know that a lot of self-employed persons are busy. And therefore, I would strongly suggest to individuals, if you really care about that person, you may have to do two things, or maybe 3. 1, get them registered. 2, collect the money from them. And 3, pay in. Because if you don't do that for your loved one, what is going to happen is that when they reach 67, they're not getting a pension, you may not support them. Okay? And it's a simple thing. If you pay $21 per week, okay, let's put $500. $500 by 52 by 70.10. You are paying about how much? Less than $500 for a whole year. If you get a contributor pension, which is $243 per week, you're getting $12,000 a year in pension. That don't make sense. Pay contributions. You want to rather than find yourself out there where your children now, rather than having to look after their lives, not going to be supporting you. Okay, and I want this to go right across Barbados, that Barbadians wake up and understand that my object in getting self-employed people to pay contributions is not, I want money in their pockets. I want that they have money in their pockets, and they don't have to come and lie before an individual when they reach that age that they were doing this and whatever else. And, okay, and I hear the lies coming from Christians when they have to be interviewed in respect of non-contributory pension. Okay, it's not a pleasant experience. I'm not the person involved, but I understand, I hear, and whatever else. So, for temporary officers, you're entitled to all temporary and regular employees in Barbados, you're entitled to all of the benefits under the scheme, whereby you pay 11.10%. And I want to say this here. You say 11.10%. Most of that doesn't really stay at national insurance. A lot of that doesn't stay at national insurance. Because those are different levies that are added at national insurance to be transferred to other government departments to be administered somewhere else. So in truth and in fact, the total of 11.10 isn't towards national insurance only. It is sewage tax, water tax, training levy, non-contributing, all these kind of things that are not part of your benefit at national insurance. Now, so you're entitled to all the benefits under the scheme. For the appointed officer, you pay less contributions because yours is 9.80%, and you're not entitled to severance or unemployment or sickness benefit. You're entitled to an injury, but not sickness benefit. Because while for this person in private, temporary, self-employed can receive benefits from national sickness for 1 year, an appointed officer cannot receive sickness benefit, but they will be paid their salary for 1 year. So they're not disadvantaged in any way. So I want to deal with the responsibilities, because unless we understand our responsibilities towards ourselves in paying contributions, there can be many benefits or maybe no benefits for you down the road. If you have any questions, you can ask them about that part of it right now as I go into the different types of benefits so that you better understand what you're entitled to, and I dispel any myths that there may be around in respect of whatever else. Okay? Any questions about contributions? Good evening. Go ahead. Continue. Yeah.
And the month come.
Oh, Lord mercy. Too sweet. Two things quickly before, no. One, national insurance holds the right to determine who's self-employed and who's not. Because the situation is that we have a lot of businesses now who are seeking to make the person self-employed, and really legally, they're not supposed to be self-employed because that employer controls the hours of work and whatever else. Even government have had people, the ASH program and so forth, and in our humble opinion, those persons really should not have been self-employed, they should have been employed by government. So national holds the right to determine, because the employer is responsible for the full contribution. If the employer chooses not to make the deductions, they are still liable for the full contribution and cannot make those deductions at a later time. Okay? But if the employee is working and national is not being deducted and does not report it to national insurance, when things turn sour and they end up at national insurance, national is going to treat it as collusion between the employee and the employer to defraud national insurance. So I'm saying that persons need to know where they stand when it comes to the whole. So he said national holds the right to determine who's self-employed from who's. You can't decide, well, I'm self-employed or that person is self-employed. No, if there's doubt, go into national insurance and they will determine whether, based on your contract of service or your thing, whether you're self-employed or not. Okay? Because we got a long presentation in respect of benefits and whatever, so we're going down the road fast. Go ahead, quickly.
There are some persons who will be employed by government. Some programs that the government brought up since 2002. There were some programs that the government brought up. And persons working in those programs have been told, we don't have a category for you. You're not self-employed. You are not contract worker. National insurance says we do not have a category for you. So that person will not have been able to pay national insurance. It has been happening since 2002. There are two programs that the government brought on board recently, and I understand that those persons were also told there is no category for you. So where do you stand?
I am not the authority on that issue. Firstly, say that national insurance has a complaint section, and it has, because national insurance does everything. There's no assistance from outside national insurance. They have their own lawyers and whatever else. And I don't know who would have indicated that there's no category, whether national insurance or some other person. But there can't be a situation in Barbados, this is my humble opinion, where persons, there's not a category for persons. So that needs to be seriously challenged even in the court of law. I'm radical, unfortunately. Because I'm saying to you, okay, that there's, from the inception, there's self-employed, there is employed, temporary, or whatever else. And there is a fact sheet, which, two fact sheets. One for determining the person self-employed, and one where the person, if Another person controls your hours of work, the tools, and whatever else. Therefore, you are employed by that person. You want what I'm saying, okay? But they said a lot of persons have sat back and allowed this to happen without having it being challenged. And it needs to be challenged maybe in the court of law, because those persons are exposed to dangers, serious dangers. And therefore, I don't understand where, but they say that is not my expertise, but these are things, I'm into this under sun because I would have spoken about something, and unfortunately, the information came from a government officer, but they didn't give the full story of the situation. So I believe that the time has come in Barbados where a person needs to speak up and speak out, because I'm saying you can be seriously injured in some of these jobs. And then the question is, where do you stand? Okay, and I know of a situation at a nursing home belonging to government where a person was injured, and that, based on my knowledge, is before the law court in respect of the National Union of Public Workers representing that individual. But there's some of the things that I not professional on, but I'm trying to, my role here this album more so is to educate persons on the types of benefits that they are entitled to and so forth. But for there's certain questions you may need to be checking with the department itself to get the kind of answers. But that one, I find it strange that there's not a category for certain persons in Barbados. I'm really at a loss on that one. Hello? Okay, but that's what I'm saying to you. But I said that is a matter I would prefer a person to take up, not discuss this evening, but to take up with the complaint section, because we have a complaint section, and we have lawyers on board who give legal opinions on whatever else. Okay, but it's good. I was made to understand that some of those workers are now going to be employed. You want what I'm saying, and contributions will be paid for them. Okay, so it's strange that there wasn't a category, but you can now find them in a category and whatever else. But that is a different story. Okay, you want what I'm saying, but sufficient that some employed persons are expected to pay contributions and so forth. Okay, okay.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Persons like myself who have worked in government, I suppose it's a lot easier. I have worked for 38 years. I suppose it's a lot easier for persons like myself when it comes to contributions versus benefits. I am thinking about those who are in the private sector. Years ago, a person would have worked as an employee for someone, and they would not have known that their contributions were not paid in. So my question is it possible for an employee to pay his own contributions rather than having to depend on the employer who may not do such? Although I understand that the employer still has to pay him if he didn't pay whatever amount.
Okay, easy. Two things. One, if a person chooses to pay the contributions, you are basically paying the contributions for the employer. So you're letting the employer off the hook. Okay? So you're paying 70.10% rather than 11.1%, and the employer is getting away from paying 12.75%. Okay? So you're really helping your employer. And it means then that down the road, if you get injured while working for the employer, you can't get employment injury. If he decides to terminate you, you can't get unemployment. If you've been working there for all these years and he decides the business closed down, you can't get severance. So while yes, you're making contributions, you're disadvantaging yourself greatly. Because, so I'm saying that I do not encourage persons to not pay contributions because the employer is not paying. No. National Insurance has a website, NIS.gov.bb. You can check your contributions online and so forth, or you can move from where you are and go to the office. You become too lazy in Barbados to go there and get them checked, okay? But not only in private, in government, there's some government offices who pay contributions and the earners are not there either. So don't say that. So the thing that the private has been guilty alone, I'll tell you of QH in the past and certain other government departments where the earners were not recorded at National Insurance. Because somewhere along the line, certain things happen. So I'm saying that once you pay your contributions, whether you're private or anything, then you will tell them to the benefits that you're entitled to under the scheme.
I reserve another question.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah, because I want to get into the benefits as quick as possible because there's a lot to share and so forth. Now, again, as I said, make sure your contributions are there. For women, if you get married, make sure you go to National Insurance with the relevant documents and have your name changed. For the simple reason, a lot of women change their name and do not notify National Insurance because they've notified the employer. If you notify the employer, you will Mary Alice this week, and your contribution will be coming in as Mary Alice. You get married, and you're now Mary Jane or Mary Alice Jane or whatever. Make sure National Insurance knows how your earnings will be coming in to make sure that when they come from your employer, they're going, because your employer is changing the list from Mary Alice to Mary Jane or whatever else. So therefore, National, even though the names are somewhat near, they're still totally different. So they're not going to go under your National Insurance number, they're going to the clarification account until you can bring your documents, have your name changed, and then you'll be transferred under there. Okay? So make sure when you have your name changed. Now, when you go to the doctor, make sure the doctor writes the claim under the correct name that you're registered with National Insurance under also, and be consistent with that. Always be consistent with that. That's more for women who get married, but there's some men who give nicknames and they send the contribution in on the nickname because they feel that that's your name, and therefore the same problem arises. Now, you go to the doctor will give you the yellow form. Okay? If you're, for those persons who are off because of COVID, when you get your discharge certificate or your phone or whatever else, you should take that to the clinic or to the private doctor and obtain the yellow form to send in. Now, once you go to the doctor does not have to give you a yellow form to take to your employer. Okay? And that was from the inception. You can request a letter from your doctor to take to your employer, which will not have the cause of illness, cause of illness on that certificate. But the one that comes to National Insurance must be specific. Whatever is wrong with you, it must be specific from the doctor on that form, because we have codes and whatever else. Now, when you receive that form, you are the person who determines whether that form will be used for sickness or for injury. Not your doctor, not your employer. You are the one who determines that what is wrong with you is either work-related or not. Okay? So if it is not work-related, you would tick the box, not work-related, accident, not work-related, or sickness, or what, okay. If you, in your opinion, is work-related, then you tick that box, and then you would have to fill out the reverse side of the claim, the form, indicating where it happened, exactly where it happened. Don't say at work. If it was on the first floor, by the cafeteria, or by the toilet, or whatever else, you fell, you want to say you slipped and fell, or whatever else, you need to be specific. If you were driving the truck, you would say, well, I was driving the truck and I was on Sandy Lane Road, and it was an accident between P whatever else and L whatever else, you must be specific. Because when you send that form in to National Insurance, and it's an employment insurance and will deal separate, National will send a report to your employer to get confirmation so that you can be compensated accordingly. So when you get that yellow form, please fill it out and send it in. As much as you may not have to give your employer one of those yellow forms, which has the cause of illness, your employer might determine when you're due to come back to work to get another letter indicating that you're fit to resume work now. Because if I'm a restaurant, I ain't no wrong with you. You're home for a week or whatever else. I want to know that you're able to come in the restaurant and you bring whatever you had before. So you go back to your daughter and get another one saying that you are not fit to resume work. That's the authority that the employer has, that they can require you bring another one. You want them saying, okay? Because you didn't tell me what was wrong with you in the first place. Now, so you go to the doctor, you get that form. If the sickness is less than 2 weeks, you're not paid for the first 3 days. There's no legislation in Barbados, her is set return. Yeah. If you're no, listen, I like those questions. That's a question. If you're sick for less than 2 weeks, you're not paid for the first 3 days. Okay? So if it's only 1 week, well, if they give you 5 days, you pay for the first 3 days, and I hope that one of those isn't a Sunday, because National pay Monday to Saturday, they don't ever pay for Sunday, because everybody gets 1 day off. So whether you work Saturdays or Sundays, they pay Monday to Saturday, and therefore if you only give you 5 days off, you're going to get 2 days benefits. You want to, if there's a continuation, there's another thing, and it goes past 2, but then you get paid for the full period of time. Okay? Now, it will mean then that for sickness, as I said, you are paid 16 2/3% as a benefit. There's no legislation in Barbados which requires any employer to pay any employee for not even 1 day if they're away from work. This six days that we have been here already, that's only common law. No employer has to pay you nothing for 1 day. Now, there are contractual agreements between employers and employees, either directly or with a trade union, where they may pay you 6 days or whatever else. Government workers, there's a contract between government workers and government as an employer, where temporary officers are paid 14 days sick leave, appointed officers are paid 1 year, and then after 1 year, you can be paid 6 months half pay. And you need to know that that if you are that ill, make sure that they send you before the medical board. Because after 18 months, they will stop paying you. And we have several situations right now where a person has not been medically boarded, they have an invalidity claim at national insurance, but national insurance cannot pay them until they have that board letter. So you're without income until that board letter comes in, and then national insurance start to pay you. So I would suggest that you, if you're off a year, petition them to have you sent before the medical board so that you can have that board letter to submit to national insurance. I'm not going all over the place, but I'm trying to make sure you get all certain ducks in order. So for sickness now, if you're off sick, then you submit the sickness claim and you'll be paid accordingly. If you're, there's a requirement, what we call a relevant quarter, and I'm going to get into too much details because there's a booklet at the back, some booklets at the back that are available to those who are here, and those who are not here, but I don't know what you're going to do with them, but that's a matter for you. Because there will be more people that want those booklets, but that is in the booklet. Sufficient that if you are injured on the job, you could have just gone to work the first day, got injured the first morning before you even doing anything. You're on the job. If you're injured, you can receive injury benefit. We will have a case in point where there was a truck going wrong. We were on the boat at 6 roads many years ago, overturned, and that was the first day on the job for those young men who were on the mile. 1 day did the mile, 2 survived. They were hurt, but they survived. And they got employment injury, the family got their benefit, and the land didn't work, but they were on the job because they were given the job. So that's why it's so important that persons who are working with some person, you don't let your employer off the hook, because they would have got mass money, as it were, because of that situation. Okay? So while you are trying to secure yourself one side, you're disadvantaging yourself on another side by paying contributions and not being entitled to employment injury if you get hurt on their job. Okay? Now, so for employment injury, for sickness, you're paid for a total of 1 year, either continuous or if the claims are separated, less than 13 weeks, then 1 year. For employment injury now, you are entitled to employment injury for 52 weeks from the date of the accident. So if it happens, say, today's the 21. If it means that it will go up to basically 28th of 52 weeks. So after that, if you're unable to work, you can still submit the injury form, but you cannot be compensated until you are sent, you claim disablement. So I'm going to stop and go back to the sickness, because after a year, you will have, naturally cannot pay you sickness, you have to claim invalidity. Invalidity is a green form, what people call medically unfit, but naturally doesn't have a term medically unfit. It's invalidity. So once you have unable to work, you've got, you're away from work for 1 year, you receive your 12 days, 52 weeks as a work of sickness, you would have to discuss with your doctor if in his or her professional opinion, they will give you the invalidity form. Now, for the invalidity form, once you submit it, you are saying that you're permanently unable to work. Okay? So you're not supposed to be gainfully employed for $21 per week or more. You can volunteer your time or whatever else. You can be involved with you want, but you cannot be gaining, you cannot be earning an income, because national insurance is all checked to find out, and people call it to give information. So really you are breaking the law by claiming invalidity and still being gainfully employed. National sends officers at times to check on you, because that's to make sure that you are whatever else. Okay, there's discussion now about changing some of that legislation, but that's a different matter, which I can't speak to because there's only recommendations. Okay, now once you qualify for invalidity pension, it means that it will automatically convert to old age pension, because the calculation for the invalidity is basically the same way. For pensions, you need 500 contributions. This is 10 years. For invalidity, you only need 3 years contributions. Okay, So you can get invalidity in your 30s because of something, and you get up to age 67, and you know you get it automatically converts to old age pension at that point. Whether it's a minimum pension of 243 or based on your earnings, what it will be. Okay? So sickness goes to invalidity, injury goes to disablement. Now for disablement, it's a form you collect from national insurance, send it in. No, we go back to invalidity very quick. Once it's an invalidity claim, national will send an officer out to visit you. But we started that during COVID, they weren't sending a person, but we will send a person out. That person will assess you and determine if they will recommend that you qualify for invalidity. If they're in doubt, they may recommend that you be seen by a doctor, and national will choose to send you to. So all invalidities might not end up before a doctor. If a person has stage 4 cancer and claim invalidity, I'm not sending you to the doctor. You want them to waste of money, time, and energy, and so forth. If you've been getting claims for a person for a whole year, you know, serious injury and so forth, national may not send you the doctor. I'm saying it's up to the officer to recommend. But when it comes to disablement now, you can claim disablement and still work. You can claim disablement, but disablement arises out of an injury on the job. It has to be an injury on the job to claim disablement. When you're sent to the doctor is examining you not to determine whether you can work or not, but to examine your body part or parts that you indicated was hurt in the accident. They're going to examine that body part or body parts that your doctor would have indicated to examine to determine what loss of your body function. So if they may give you 1%, they may give you 0, you have not lost loss of your body functions. On the other hand, they may give you 100%. That'll be your name. But they may give you 100%. And the booklet has a guide in the back here. This is one of the old ones from 2016. Those are the ones that came out recently. But if you look to the back of your booklet, you're going to see some percentages here which are guides to the doctors. Okay? So the situation is that once you, if the doctor gives you 0, it means you cannot receive any benefit after that period of time. You would have to claim sickness benefit. You're still away from work. If it gives you 1% or over, the yellow forms that you're sending, if you're still away from work, you can receive what is called increased disablement up to 5 years, as it were, from the date of the accident. After 5 years, and you're still away from work, you will have to claim either sickness or invalidity. But with disablement, you can receive disablement and still work. If the doctor gives you 1% to 29%, you begin what's called a disablement grant, which is a lump sum payment based on your income and the percentage the doctor gives you. So some person has been known to get $40,000, $50,000, who got injured years ago but still carrying the injury at this present moment. Okay, now if you did not report it to your doctor, your employer at that time, where the employment injury report was, you can still make the claim now. Okay, provided that the employer cooperates with the employment injury form that will go to them, and therefore all those things are involved with the disablement. So with the disablement, you can get disablement. If it's 30% or over, you're going to get a disablement pension, and that is for life. So I would have dealt with sickness, invalidity, injury, and disablement. Any questions about those? I know how fast I get the money. Okay? Thank you very much. You're traveling fast, but it's necessary because there's a lot to deal with. Going to maternity. From sickness, we're going to maternity. And maternity grant. I can't go to paternity grant. That is being branded around right now with this discussion. And it's going to be interesting how the road that goes. But at present, as of today's date, there's no paternity leave which is mandated, as it were. There are some employers in Barbados who grant the men paternity leave. You want to say, okay? But that's up to the employer. Okay? Now, once a woman is pregnant, and if you look at today's Sunday Sun, I'm being castigated by a lawyer or whatever else on a labor side of it. But I'm glad that I made the statement on whatever else, because as I said, I got the information to some extent from a labor officer who only shared part of the information. But I know of a situation many years ago, before the Employment Rights Tribunal came into being, where this woman almost lost her job because she was pregnant for the 4th time with the same employer. It was Alnat Electrical, which is no close. And what happened was that they were getting ready to close down. If she had claimed sickness and maternity, she would have lost her severance by that legislation. And that's why it's important. So that I have to commend the lawyer who castigated me for speaking upon it. That person don't know the full truth about the legislation. That they're not disadvantaged based on part of the information that is shared. Okay, get back to the national insurance. Now, once a woman is pregnant and the baby is 28 weeks or more, then she's entitled to maternity benefit, even if there's a miscarriage or stillbirth. The doctor or the midwife can still issue, and it will, in those cases it will be a doctor, because she doesn't want to be forward their midwives. She's going to be B3, she won't go B3, she will go B4 or B8 maybe, where there are no midwives. You want to say, because you don't want to place, years ago she was in the same ward with women who had babies, but that was traumatic. So now she goes into B4 where there are no midwives. So the doctor on the discharge would give her that confinement certificate. But once the baby is 28 weeks or more, then she's entitled to the 12 weeks maternity benefit. Now, she's entitled to no more than 6 before the baby is born, and guaranteed 6 after the baby is born. But she can work up to the day of the birth of the baby, because sometimes she has to work up to that day, because the baby, she got to work in the morning, and the baby says, today is the day I come in. So she has no choice but to deliver. You want to say the same? She will get all 12 weeks then from that day onward. Okay? Now, there's a provision made for teachers, because teachers can't determine what is their last day of work, because teachers are on holiday right now. So if that baby will say due the last day of vacation, her last day of work would have been the last day of school, and therefore she would have to take she would have 6 weeks during her holidays, and she would only have 6 weeks after. But because she doesn't have a say in her last day of work, as it were, they would start the maternity benefit from the day the baby is born and get the 12 weeks, same way like another woman could determine, I want to work up to the last day, to the day the baby is born, and then take my maternity. Okay? So the maternity is 100%. Okay? Now, again, well, with the sickness, you must report. After 2 days, you must submit a dog certificate to your employer. If you don't submit that dog certificate, so if the employer does not receive that sickness claim, submit the correction, because I've got to be very careful. You have terminated your own service. Even if you give the form to your friend to drop in, somebody drop in, and they didn't drop it at your workplace, you report for work, and they tell you that you've terminated your service because we did not get that form. They may not care who you gave it to. And it started being used, at more than one business place. And it started almost being used at a government department, where this woman had given us this claim to her son. He forgot to drop it in, and when she came back to work, they told her you have terminated your own service at a government department. This is a private government department. Okay? So you have to be very careful. You have up to a year to submit the yellow form to national insurance, but not to your employer. The same with maternity. Maternity is not 3 months. It's 12 weeks. So some women, one woman at a commercial bank, stayed home for 13 weeks, and when she got back, we told her, but you terminated your services because you were supposed to report to work after 12 weeks. I had to beg the human resource manager, the Lord, to keep her job. I'm saying to you, it is not easy if they're what employers will do to allow you to lose your job. So make sure you know, if you're in doubt, either go online or check with the National Insurance Officer to be certain of your entitlement. So for maternity benefit, that's if the woman is not entitled to maternity benefit because she didn't work enough, or she didn't work at all, she can claim a maternity grant on the earnings of the father of the child. Now that's part of my presentation recently, because I don't believe that there should be any requirement if the parents are not married. This is not a morality, this is not a scheme, this is morality, this is a legal scheme. If they are not married, there should not be any life of time which they should be living together, so that the child benefits from the earnings of the father of the child. That's my opinion. You want to say something? I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, but at the same time, there's a system where if the woman is working, she gets benefits. Which goes towards the child. If she's not working, the father of the child, because he has to sign the form indicating he's the father of the child. Yeah, this is all, and that is admissible in the court of law too. I know that was used in the court of law for a woman to receive land belonging to the father of the child. He had died, and when the family of the father's family didn't want anything to have to do with the child, Because they didn't figure the child was the man's own. He has signed the maternity grant when the child was born, and therefore I told the mother working there right now, she was going to obtain a copy of that form, take it to court, and the court awarded part of the land of the father because he has signed saying he was the father of the child. You want to say, so I'm just showing you how technical it is, because if the parents are married, there's no requirement how long they were married. Okay? And therefore, from whenever the legislation was changed, it was over 20 years ago, I was arguing that there should not be any, well, the direct session going to look into it. And so, as a matter of fact, part of it was in the legal session for long while being debated. It has not been passed at national insurance. But sufficient that once he has signed, no, a single woman cannot receive maternity grant where the father of the child is married to somebody else. Neither can a married woman receive maternity grant where the father of the child is not her husband's own. Because once they are not married, there must be an affidavit signed by two persons that they were living together. But before the life of time, it will mean now that if I don't know what's going to happen with the legislation, but I'm saying to you that the wife could get pregnant right after the woman got pregnant, and the wife claimed the question is going to be, but on this new system, as the way the wife can't get maternity grant, but if she claims maternity grant, then the woman has falsified the claim and she got back the money that she got. You want to say so a married woman is not supposed to get maternity money, maternity grant, not maternity benefit, maternity grant where the father of the child is not her husband, and a single woman is not supposed to get a maternity grant where the father of the child is married to somebody else. So that's the sickness, invalidity, injury, disablement, maternity benefit, and maternity grant. Any questions about any of those benefits? Thank you very much, ma'am. Go ahead, go ahead. Because you were asking the question for the ones who are not here too. Go ahead. I know we'll get a question that comes to maternity part. Go ahead. No, I ain't saying that she may want those, but go ahead. Good evening.
This is never about maternity. I did that many years ago. My question this evening is about invalidity.
Go ahead.
I have been home from the beginning of the year. I submitted my green form to national insurance I got from my doctor. Since I submitted the form, I am hearing a mixture of how it works, how the procedure works. You just cleared up something for me, somewhat. You told me what it means, because sometimes you will hear persons refer to it as medical, coming out medically unfit, and then you're hearing about the invalidity. Invalidity sounds kind of harsh.
Okay, because they are looking at changing the name of the benefit, okay? You want to say something, but that is the legal terminology and so forth. Go ahead.
Right. So persons are saying that I should have been on sick leave for about a year before I submit this form, etc., etc. For me, I have immune disease, which today's a good day for me. I will tell everyone.
Could you stick a pen quickly? Now, once you submit an invalidity claim and you have not had a year's sickness benefit, we will log a sickness claim and pay you a year's sickness benefit. Okay? In the meantime, the visit is going, because so by the time you reach the year's sickness, you would end up with the invalidity be ready to start. So you don't have to claim a year's sickness. You can claim a year's sickness, and then after a year, because they're going to stop paying you, you have to claim invalidity. But you claim invalidity once you're not an appointed officer, you want something, then we will nationally will pay you sickness for the year. Okay? So you have not been getting sickness benefit as yet, ain't at all?
No.
Or you can call me tomorrow at 431-7400, extension 1867.
Somebody write that for me, please. Somebody write that for me.
You will get that at the end of the book. You will get it at the end of the, remind me to give it at the end.
Okay.
So that person will be ready to write for those who are home too. Go ahead.
An officer did visit my home, a random visit. She did visit my home. But again, this was a few months ago, still they not hear anything. She too said, by now I should have been getting, she cleared it up for me that I should be getting sickness pay, and she explained that until the invalidity benefits come through. I will be paid sickness benefits up to the time, and she also explained that later on it would move from the invalidity on to
Old age pension.
old age pension. God's willing, I'm looking forward to that as well. Right. So in a situation like this for me, thanks for clearing up that I did not have to be on sick leave for an entire year, as persons were saying that I did it backward in terms of I sent in my green farm before I was on sick leave for a whole year. But my doctor gave me the form. He said, you really shouldn't be working. So he went ahead and he rated the form for me and stuff. So I was at home, but I was still worried about this part where persons, because believe it or not, I'm getting this information from NAS. Believe it or not. Right? So
I know.
it has been back and forth, not sure where I am, how it actually works, what the process is. When the money comes, it comes. I just living on my faith, and it has been working well for me. God is showing me He will never leave me or forsake me. So even though I have not worked since January 3rd, and it is almost September, God has sustained me. But at the same time, there's that worrying part. Will benefits come? Will it be denied? Because then persons are saying, if NAS don't say yes, you have to go back out to work. My employer is telling me I'm still on their payroll until National Insurance says yes or no. But mind you, the position has been filled.
Okay.
My position has been filled, but still they're saying if NAS say no, you have to go back out to work. Maybe back out in the workforce, not necessarily back there. So it has been a back and forth kind of situation for me. Thank God I'm here today to get answers. So thank you.
Thank you. You're here today that a whole lot of other people will get the answers the same way you want to say, because you are supposed to change agents. Okay. Let me deal with it right quickly. I want to ask a question first. Did the officer say to you whether, in their opinion, they're going to recommend that you be medically boarded? I mean, that you would qualify?
She did.
She did. So
Yeah.
once she said that, it would hardly be a case where you would have to go before a doctor.
She said that as well.
You want something. It would hardly be a case. You want something. Because we're speaking to those who are home. Right? So I'm just trying to get this information out there so the other person is able to allay the fears or whatever else. Okay? Now, but if the person was in doubt, then they might have said to you, they may say to you, or they may, but it would write the report indicating whatever else, and then adopt. Okay. Now, as I said, I'm going to give the telephone number. When you see to the office, I'll give you the numbers and so on, so that you're able to call, because I'm back. After I came back in 2020 to assist with the unemployment and now the sickness that are, as a mushroom, and I'm going to be back home. I should be back home next year, God willing, because by then I'll be 66, they're done with that. I don't plan to be there 67, okay? But I'm really, I think, as I said, you should not have much to be, you don't have anything to fear. You know what I'm saying? And then we'll make sure that there are those persons who are able to process it, so that we should be getting some money, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay?
Another thing too that I was told that kind of threw me off a bit was that even before I came out from work this January time, all September, October last year, I would have submitted sickness benefit claims. So because the invalidity was taking a bit long, I asked the question, what about the sick leave that I would have submitted before? And an officer said to me, I did not have enough contributions to pay the sickness benefits. How long I started back to work. And he's talking about, you remember when most of Barbados was on layoff because of the pandemic. But I said, well, I've been back to work over a year now. How it is that my contribution, I don't have enough contributions to pay sickness, because as far as I know, sickness is a different category to the whole layoff part. So how is it that I did not have
Okay.
sickness
Let me
benefits
just take a
for
bit
the year?
here quickly because I want to get those much. And I'm going to answer your question very quickly. You will see me hold my head because it's sad, it's unfortunate, some of the information that does come out. Okay? I don't have the facts in respect to your claim. I don't normally deal with claims during my presentations. Sufficient that it allowed me to go back to something that I should have said up front. That once you're off Monday to Saturday, you're given what is called a credit. Okay? Whether your employer paid you or not, you are given a credit. So if for the purpose of calculating the unemployment or the sickness or whatever else, your average weekly salary was say $400, we would give you a credit for that particular week. So that if you were off during the pandemic for unemployment, you would have received a credit for every one of the weeks that you were home. When you claim a sickness benefit, you can be paid sickness benefit on all credits. So I don't see where, if it was the case that after you return to, well, after, well, some people would have exhausted the 26 weeks of their unemployment, and then they were still off, and therefore there's no benefit to them. If that is the period whereby you weren't working and there's no benefit, then if that is the relevant quarter necessary for the sickness, then you could be disallowed. Okay? But that's one of the presentations I made recently at the Alexander School. Because when you can use credits, all credits for sickness, unemployment, and injury, you can't for maternity benefit. And a lot of people who got pregnant because they were unemployed in 2020 and didn't have anything to do, they were enjoying themselves, they got pregnant. So when they claimed the maternity benefit, the period that was necessary was the same period that they were unemployed, and therefore they did not get the maternity benefit. You want to say? But I find it very difficult to believe what you, as you described that you were unemployed and whatever else, and now you're sick, you will not qualify. Okay, you want to say? But once you are entitled to any sickness benefit, you want to say, yeah, even though it was not being paid, you are still entitled to it. And I commend you and those who continue to work in spite of all of your sickness and so forth, against the doctor's advice, you want to say, and then you don't have a choice but to claim the invalidity, you want to say, because you really want to work, you want to say. Okay?
Because my doctor wanted me to come home a long time ago, but
Excuse me. There are a lot of people walk along with sickness claims in the bikes and will not submit them.
I had
But you like to work.
quite a few months before I did
I know. Okay?
submit.
See, that's what being a Christian is all about. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. I want to make one question quickly. Right. After working for 38 years, and it's not just me, all of my colleagues, I'm a teacher, and we are yet unsure of a number of things. Somebody was saying to me, well, you could have gone on at the Saints. You've been 33 and 30 years. And after asking questions and speaking things, they realized that that is not true. So I said all that to say that there are a lot of things that people are unsure about, even in government. And I don't know if the NAS can do, I know you have a website. But sometimes even with the website, there are a lot of gray areas, and I'm wondering if there can be a better form of education for workers, even for private workers, when they come in, that they know exactly, this is what you have to do, these are my benefits, X, Y, Z. A lot of people, all right, do not know. Even people that probably you would say should know, don't know. They're unsure. Or they do that on purpose. I don't know.
The pastor of this church used to work there. Huh? At the treasury. The treasury isn't that. Hello? So the pastor of this church, yes, Pastor Barger, that was, you see, I'm saying this because, and I know that persons are sick and couldn't attend this afternoon, but let me get straight. I've done lectures in a lot of churches, and as I was sharing with him, I did one of the in the church, a Saturday afternoon that can have about maybe 60, 70 people on church, Sunday morning, and 3 people turn up. So a lot of persons, some of their opportunities for education But we are so busy doing X, Y, and Z, we've got time to come and sit and listen. Okay? I'm not defaming national insurance or any other entity. Okay? But that's why I started by saying God's people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. And that information I'm going to deal with down at the bottom of my presentation. The whole issue of Abatement of Pensions Act and how they will be too relate and so forth. That's part of the white blanket. That's just before we get dismissed. And even I write them. But you're going to get that part for the benefit of those who are public officers. Okay? But sufficient that I have volunteered my time. I'm not boasting, I've volunteered my time both on Zoom and in person through the years of doing lectures all across Barbados. From St. Philip to St. Lucie Railway to St. Joseph to wherever else. But very often when they do turn up, people don't have the time to come and listen. But they're busy getting the hair done, doing a lot of things that don't add up. And then they lose $40,000, $50,000, okay, because they do not know. Okay? No. So we get back very quickly now to the we were dealing with maternity, and she clearly said that hers is not maternity. Thank you very much. We've been there and done that. Okay. We're going to unemployment. Now, for unemployment, as I said earlier, there are three categories. One, if you were laid off, if you're dismissed, or if you resign. For all three of them, they will fall, all unemployment will fall under one of those three. It's your responsibility to go to the Humphrey Walker building on Colonial, which is the building that person administration is so in, and register within 2 weeks of the date you become unemployed. With or without determination to live in reform, with or without it. It's your responsibility. If you don't go and register within 2 weeks, you start to lose part of your unemployment. Okay? Now, after you've registered, you're expected to either do online or in person a declaration every 3 weeks, because you're declaring every 3 weeks that during the above period, the 3 weeks I've just passed, I was unemployed, I did not work, I did not receive any remuneration, I was available for work, and I was in Barbados. So that's what you are actually signing, because if it's proven that you were out of the island, you were working somewhere else, and you didn't want to work for them at all, that benefit can be disallowed. Okay? So that's the reality. Okay? So for the unemployment, now, once you are dismissed because of your own misconduct, or you resign, you will be interviewed by an officer. And that officer can disallow you up to 6 weeks of your unemployment once you are available for work. So if you are dismissed because of your own misconduct, or you resign, they may decide, okay, I'll take away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 weeks. Or they may decide to something, look, if you were unjustly dismissed, you have good reason to resign from that place, you want to say, I want to say something, and give you all 26 weeks unemployment, rather than disallowing any portion. Okay, now the decision that the officer made, you can appeal, because all decisions at nationals can be appealed to the appeals tribunal, whether it's a medical or a normal tribunal. Okay, you can appeal to that tribunal, which are not members of the national insurance staff. They will make a determination of whether they uphold the decision by the staff member or they overrule the decision by the staff member. Okay? So therefore, for unemployment, if you resign to go and study, they normally give you a 6 weeks disallowance, automatic 6 weeks. Years ago, because you're not available for work really. Okay? But years ago, you could not get in at all. But it was very important to get that person resign at times to further their education, to improve their law. Okay? So therefore they say, something, take 6 from them and give them the 20. So at least they're able to have an income while they're studying to improve their position and so forth. Okay? So that's the unemployment. Okay? They said we still have to get that reform to make it in order to pay you as it were. Okay? But some employers may withhold it for one reason or the other, still go and register so that you can qualify for your unemployment. We go from unemployment down to funeral grant and survivors. Any questions about unemployment? Certain, right. Okay? Because for the funeral grant, what she's going to the mic, you only need 1 year's, the deceased person only need 1 year's contribution, or if they have a spouse, they have 1 year's contribution, a funeral grant can be paid. Yes, ma'am. Back for
This is not quite yet about unemployment. It's more about layoff. What I wanted to find out is, suppose you are being laid off every year, like three, say for 3 to 4 weeks. I want to know if that will affect your pension when it's time for pension. Well, this is
But no,
27 years.
Ma'am, a fantastic question. Your question is a fantastic question. I would have answered it to some extent when I was speaking to her, but I didn't go the full length. Now, as I said earlier, once you're off for whatever, for Monday to Saturday, you are given a credit. And there's this myth up there that if you take too much sickness leave or whatever else, it reduces your pension. That is not true. Once you have your 500 paid contributions or more, all credits are added for the purpose of calculating your pension.
Okay.
So if the woman had 15 children and she was able to have contributions for all 15, she has all of those. There's 12 by 50 you can count. Those are a lot of credits that will be added. If a person was on sick leave or unemployment for 2 years, very regular, whatever else, then all of those are credits the person would have had. So therefore, once the person has had the 10 years paid contribution, they work for 10 years or more, all the credits are added for the purpose of the calculation of the pension.
I just want to check on that.
Excuse me, ma'am, that's what you came
Yeah,
to.
that was a myth
And
thing.
the answers for all those who are not here, I will share with others also.
So I'm good.
It's a big myth.
Yeah, I'm good.
That the volume of sickness and whatever, it reduces your pension. It may affect, well, 500 contributions, but 1052s is 520. So I used to normally take 10 years, a total of 10 years. Okay, by 500 contributions, because each week being a contribution, you want something. That's what the 500 is. Each week being a contribution, you remember 10 by 52, you got 500 clear. Okay? You want something.
Well, I'm good because they do 30 years already.
All
So.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay? Thank you. No, it doesn't have to be continuous. The 10 years doesn't have to be continuous. You want the same thing. Okay? Once it's a total of 10 years, that's it. Okay? And she came from the higher deck to ask a question. Go ahead.
Good night.
Good night.
My question is merely about severance. Okay, for instance, if you're, as you said, you get interview, if you,
For unemployment.
okay, yeah, if the interviewer NIS says that you have been insubordinate to that extent, where you lose at least 3 weeks from your pay, does this affect severance from the employer?
No. There are normally 3 conditions under which you can qualify for severance. One, if the job you are doing no longer exists, it becomes redundant. 2, if you were laid off for 13 weeks straight, or if you were laid off 16 weeks in a 6-month period. I didn't mention anything about being dismissed.
Okay.
Or alleged dismissed because of your own misconduct. You want something? Now, if you have been dismissed, if the employer indicates you have been dismissed for your own misconduct, you have a case really for the Labor Department. You want something more so than National Insurance severance. Because Labor Department, the Employment Rights Tribunal deals with unfair dismissal and whatever. Now, if, and this is subject to correction, if you win your case, then your compensation may very well be the same as if the same calculation for severance. But a case where the employer is saying they dismiss you because of your own misconduct, that's a matter you really should be taken up with the Labor Department and let them deal with that.
So when there's a conflict between the NIS and Labor Office, if
Well,
the Labor Office says...
No, hold on, but see, the Employment Rights Tribunal is a law court. Is a law court. So that's not just like we have a severance tribunal which are not members of National Insurance staff. Okay?
Okay.
And there are those legal persons who manage the severance pay tribunal. You want to say all tribunals are legal entities which are like a law court. You want to say, okay? So therefore, if in your opinion is a case of severance, then the officer will look at what has happened and then guide you in respect of your claim for severance or recommend that you go to the Labor Department. If you go to the Labor Department and discuss with them, they may say you have a case for severance, go to National Insurance. You want what I'm saying? Okay. But one of the two tribunals in place which can hear a person's matter, either the Severance Pay Tribunal or the Employment Rights Tribunal. Okay? And with the, you see, with the National Tribunal service, you never had to get a lawyer. For many years, if you were dismissed because of your own misconduct, then you had to get a lawyer. So when the Employment Rights Tribunal came into being, you can now represent yourself. You want what I'm saying? Because it was really unfair that an employer can threaten you, fire you, and they threaten you. If you take me to court, I can have 15 lawyers, and if you lose, the court may award costs. So a lot of employees, were afraid to claim wrongful dismissal because, and then you still got to pay your lawyer. But now, with the Employment Rights Tribunal, based on my knowledge, you can represent yourself there, just like before the Severance Tribunal. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
If you before the Severance Pay Tribunal, no, before the Severance Pay Tribunal, you don't have to have a lawyer. If you choose to get a lawyer, you got to pay them. That's what I'm saying. Severance. It doesn't say on the board. But it doesn't say unfair dismissal. You go before the Employment Rights Tribunal. You can represent yourself. If you choose to get a lawyer, you got to pay your lawyer.
Because this person got a lawyer.
Okay. The person got.
They got a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to, the lawyer has to pay from whatever person wants to pay.
But this was the case at National Insurance or Labor? This was the case at the Severance Pay Tribunal. Labor, that's what I'm saying. And this was before the Employment Rights legislation was passed. That's what I'm saying. If you know what I'm saying? I think that the court might have awarded costs. You want what I'm saying? To whoever lose, I don't know. But there's the employment. Yeah, but I'm saying to you that the legislation is there now. Okay, and that's a labor matter, so I prefer not to deal with that. Okay, so I respect what you are saying, but there are those things that I prefer the person to go to the department and let them be guided accordingly. You want what I'm saying? Because a lot of information that we hear sometimes is far from the truth. I tell you. Okay? I'm not saying that people lie, but they twist things around and so forth for the convenience of whatever else. Okay? Right. So we're going down to so you've got your answer. Thank you very much. I hope you know what I'm downstairs again. Yes, we're going to funeral grant. Now, once a person dies and either the deceased person has paid at least 1 year's 50 contributions, or the spouse of the deceased has paid, then whoever paid or is responsible for paying the funeral grant will claim the funeral grant. Because you have to submit a death certificate and a receipt or invoice from the undertaker. So it has nothing to do with next of kin, family, whatever. Because you can, okay? Now the funeral grant is $2,185. So if you pay $19,000, whatever else, you only get about $2,185. But you see these big pictures and long spreads and so forth. I used to see the funeral grant invoice coming to National Insurance. I said to myself, Lord have his mercy. $18,000 for a funeral? Yes. And you know how much of that is VAT? Never enough is VAT. Thank you very much. But the end is the day morning, by the afternoon, put in a little board box and so forth, and it costs $2,185. Okay? I'm just helping us to understand that we may say there ain't no money, but there are others who bury for less than that. Okay? But once you, so you submit either, if it's an invoice, you have to have 2 signatures of persons, as it were, are guarantors in case that you don't pay the undertaker any money. National Insurance will pay you got to pay by the National Insurance, and in order to pay the undertaker, but the undertaker, no one can claim the funeral grant but the person who either paid or is responsible for paying. But you can authorize National Insurance to pay to any person, whether it be undertaker or any other person. In other words, an alternate payee. Okay, you can put down the undertaker. Once the undertaker has volunteered that the money comes to them, or the undertaker tells them, I've got too long for that money, pay me all my money, you pay National Insurance. Now, when it comes to person who die who are pensioners, it would mean that tomorrow's pension day. For those who are pensioners, know that pensions tomorrow. She's smiling and saying, oh Lord, have his birthday. 29th. We're looking for the postman since Tuesday last week. We just left the office on Tuesday, and we call the office, yeah, the pension's gone, yeah. And it ain't the pensioner, it's some grandson or some person who carry the personal pension. You want to say one of the pension gone up, yeah. Hello, Cowboy Friday, money blow. Thank you very much. But Tomorrow's pension date. Now, if some person cash their pension check tomorrow, they're alive tomorrow, but they die Tuesday, it means that that pension, number 2 pension check, should be returned. The pension that was cashed yesterday, which was cashed legal, but the person was alive, that pension check was valid for 14 days. So what's going to happen is that when that pension, that funeral grant is paid, they're going to take out 13 days out of that check. If it's day Monday, the cash it Monday, day Monday, they can take out 13 days, which is from Tuesday down to you want to send it out of the funeral grant. And if that check for number 2 is not returned, they can take out that one and any other check that went out. Or if it's got a bank account, they can take out that money out of the funeral grant. So while the person buried the individual in 2085, you may not get 2085, on the other hand, you don't get a cent. Because the pension may be a large pension, and what has gone to the bank or whatever else with somebody withdraw, you bury the person, is more than 2,185, so you will not get any money. Okay? So if you can bury some person, make sure you have control over the check that went out or the money that going to the bank before you decide to take on that responsibility. Okay? Right? So that's why on the takers with that point, you pay my money and you wait on national insurance to get yours. Okay? And there are challenges at national insurance in dealing with funeral grants because we got to do all that subtraction. We ain't gonna pay you so fast. We can make sure we can check to see if checks come back in and whatever else before we decide to pay you. Because if you want, we can pay you fast and take all that money. But then it means that you got to get the check canceled and whatever else. So they take a bit of long. I'm not defending the department, but they're under tremendous pressure when it comes to funeral grant at times. Okay, so that's the funeral grant now. So the 2 funeral grants that can be paid on one set of earnings. Because in other words, if I never worked and I died, whoever buried me when I died could claim the funeral grant on my work. And then when she dies, whoever buried her can claim a funeral grant on her earnings also. But it cannot be done like a child, a mother, or a sister or brother. No, it can only be a spouse. 2 persons living together for more than 3 years, or a married couple, spouse. Okay? Including the funeral grant. No. There's survivors also. There's survivors in the case of spouse and survivors in case of the children. No. If the surviving spouse is under 45, then she or he can claim survivor's pension for 1 year, half the deceased's pension. So even though the person is not 67, they will calculate what will be the surviving, maybe invalidity, the same as thing, and then they will pay the surviving spouse half the only for 1 year. If the surviving spouse is between 45 and 49, then the surviving spouse will receive a third of the deceased's pension up until when they apply for their own pension. If the surviving spouse is 50 or over, you will get half the deceased's pension up until when you apply for your own pension. Okay? We'll go back through again. If you're under 45, okay, then you receive half the deceased's pension, but only for 1 year. Don't ask me why. They may say you okay, but if you will marry before 67, then the survivor is going to stop. Okay, but under 45, half only for 1 year. 45 to 49, a third until you apply your pension. Whichever is greater, you will get then. 50 and over, half the deceased pension until you reach pension age, and at that point, whichever is the greater, you will get. Okay, you want some, so you can't get survivors and old age at the same time. A question online? Online, no problem. You're gonna.
Hi, good evening. This is my question. It might sound stupid, but it is for my benefit and probably others that in my age group. As you all know, I am already receiving a contributory pension. But I am hearing now that you have to work to 71 years in order to receive pension. What I would like to know is if these other 2 years will affect my pension that I receiving, or when I get to 71, if I can hear now that I didn't contribute and I will go on down to non-contributory pension. I would just like to know what is in there because these things right now seem conflicting to me. if it's possible to get them answer, I would very much appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Okay. And I very much appreciate that question because the first thing I had to do 2 Sundays ago is address our congregation about this issue. This tremendous depression, fear, and whatever's in our society because of what has come up just recently. As I speak, no decision has been made in respect of pensions, so that there's no one who can speak to what is going to happen down the road. It may go from when I think it was 2006 when we went into pension reform. It went from 65 to 65 and a half. Then after I think a 2-year period or whatever, it went from 65 and a half to 66. Then after another 2-year period, it went from 66 and a half to 67. And this way it stood. I told people back then it would never change, not knowing where we are today. But there's still open discussion. There's still submissions from organizations and individuals written things. And there are many, as I said, suggestions which it may not change from 67. They may get the several people paying contributions and they may do other things so that it may not move from 67. But there's no definite date or anything that has been taken. Those things which are there in the public domain, but no decision has been taken. But I do understand that persons are in tremendous fear. I am 65. And if it changes 67, when you look at my pension at 67, you make a shift and go on the road. Well, it concerns me just as much as any other person. Okay? I will live for 67 that I can get my pension from national insurance, and the one from Treasury, the scratch grant that they're giving me, they will give me a little bit more for the scratch grant and national insurance. But look what happening? So I'm saying it involves me, but there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of depression and whatever else in hearts of people. But as I speak right now, there is no decision that has been taken. You want to say something? The jury is still out on that, and we will wait to see what will happen. I would hope that it would not be changed, but that's in the hands of other persons other than the National Insurance Department. I believe there's a member of the church here with a pension check up in the church and showing off. Show off, girl. Thank you very much. Okay. So I dealt with survivors. Okay. I dealt with the spouse survivors. Let me do it very quickly because you all don't want to go home, right? I got to go to St. Lucie. That was the spouse survivors. They're the children survivors. Each child up to the age of 25, if they're still attending a government-approved institution, can make a claim for survivors. I didn't say they will get it. Any child up to the age of 25, attend a government-approved institution, can make a claim for survivors. Remember I said just now that if there's a spouse that's getting half, okay, each of them can receive 1/6. But if a spouse is receiving half, it means that only 3 children can get at any one time. If there's no spouse, 6 can get at any one time. Now, all children in Barbados are legitimate. So you have situations where a man dies, he has a spouse who is receiving half, but he got 8 children. Yes, he got 8 children. But only 2 are from the spouse. And the 2 last come from the spouse. Who gets survivors out of those? Because remember, the spouse getting half. Which 3 gets? Not the wife one. All of them are illegitimate. National will pay the 3 oldest. Because all are his. They will pay the 3 oldest. When one of them go off the list, another child will come on. Because if you decide to pay the spouse 2, it means that the other, only one of the other 6 would get. Okay? So therefore, it's fair that the children all belong to him. They're all legitimate under the law. And maybe the spouse would have harmed some other woman to die and get those 2 children. Yes, we got to be fair. You know what I'm saying? So the children were born before she came around. So what should those children have to suffer because she came around? I'm just showing you these are realities that do happen. So what they will pay. So after all children up to age 16 do not have to show proof that they are attending school, because all children should be in school up to age 16. At age 16, that child will be cut off, awaiting a school letter. So the child may be at school and is 15. beginning of the school year, and it's being paid. And all of a sudden, in December, a check stopped because the child became 16 in December. And you wonder what happened. Oh, the child became 16. So I would always recommend if the child is receiving survivors and is going to be 16 in that school year, get a school letter in September when school starts and send it in so that by the time the child is 16, the checks will continue to go. Okay, there shouldn't be any interruption. No. On the other hand, once the child is 16 or over, all children 16 years and over are cut off at the end of the school year. All. So none of the children 16 years and over are being paid right now. None. What will happen is then when school starts back now in September, not before, because the child might be assigned a place in a school or university, or like, no. If you send that letter will not be used. It must be dated after the school year in Barbados starts. And therefore, you go to school, you get a school letter. Schools are familiar with those letters, indicating that you are going to be in full-time studies for another year. So if you're at university part-time, you will not get survivors after you're 16. Okay? The letter must say full-time. For secondary schools, we know that it is, and they are full school years. But some institutions which are overseas, and so they are let's call them, there's only there's what, 2 semesters. So if it says for the semester September to say February or whatever else, you will only get the February. Okay? If it's from Barbados, it's SJPI, community college, well, no. If it's a secondary school, okay, we don't have semesters at secondary schools. SJPI and BCC, you may have a 6-month course or whatever else. So they will have to indicate full-time, and then you'll be paid for another year, school year. And then, but when you send that form in September, they will go back and pay you for the summer vacation. So you will not lose the summer vacation. You want to send, but you will not be paid for the summer vacation until you are reassigned to school in September. Okay? And that goes for another year. So every year, so sometimes the letter will say, oh, the child has been at this university from 2022 to 2024. In 2023, you're going to get another letter. You want to send, because only God knows what happened. You must start to work in there and so forth. So you're no longer at that university. Every year you have to have a letter at the beginning of the school year. So that's so you dealt with sickness, invalidity, injury, disablement, maternity benefit, maternity grant, unemployment, funeral grant, survivors, and we're going right down on to pensions, as far as I can speak. Now, there are 2 types of pensions paid from the National Insurance Department. I'm going to deal with the non-contributory pension first. Okay? You must be a Barbadian citizen to receive non-con. Every non-con application will be interviewed. You cannot receive non-con if you're out of the island. Now, if you're in the island and you're receiving non-con, if you leave the island, you should notify National Insurance. 6 months after you leave the island, it will stop. You cannot receive non-contributory pension if you're in a government institution, geriatric hospital. So there are a lot of conditions under which you can't. So, but you'll be interviewed by an officer to determine whether you were gainfully employed, a whole lot of stuff we shouldn't get into. If the officer, whoever, it will refer to the board, and the board will then decide whether they can pay you or not. Okay? Chances are you ain't gonna get it if you were gainfully employed. Okay? So don't put your eggs in that basket, or that basket will crash. And when you get 67, it's sad you're gonna be continuing working until you die, whether they're able or not. You want to say. So I would suggest that persons get the person self-employed registered. Now, for contributory pension, there are 2 areas. I know time can get me away, so I don't do real quick. 2 areas. Early pension or standard pension. You can claim an early pension ending from age 60. If you claim an early pension, the application has an affidavit attached that must be signed by the Justice of the Peace. And you're basically saying that you are not going to be gainfully employed between 60 and 67. The same pension you qualify for, an early pension, is the same pension you get for the rest of your life. You ain't going to get early pension, which is a juice pension, and that's 67 and get your full pension. No, it ain't going to happen. Because if not everybody would apply for their pension at 60. You want to say what I'm saying? So you can't get an early pension. I'm speaking specifically about across the board. You want to say you can't receive an early pension and still be gainfully employed, either self-employed or employed. Okay? And it's a reduced pension. The reduced pension is 6% per year, 0.5 per month. Okay? So if you take your early pension at age 60, if you claim it at 60, if you claim it at 60, you're losing 42%. The minimum pension is 243. If your reduced pension comes to less than 243, you can't get an early pension. So that's another part of the trauma that person is experiencing. Okay? Because if the shift from 67 now, that makes it even worse. So a lot of persons here, you can get a pension at age 60, nobody is employing them now, and they come in to realize that the early pension comes to $190 and whatever. So we got to tell them, can't get an early pension. You may get it between 60 and 63 because at 63, the reduction would now be, less and whatever else. So it may go past the 243. But up to 67, if the early pension is less than 243, you can't get an early pension. And since COVID started, we're getting a lot of calls and applications for early pensions who do not qualify. So if you have only 500 contributions, don't expect you to get an early pension. That's the only question. Okay? Some people have 1,200 contributions and still, because of their earnings, you still can't get an early pension. You want something, okay? But there's an estimator on the portal, nis.gov.bb, that you can sign on, and you can check and see what your early pension will be like. In other words, I'm 55, so I can put in something. When I can put in 55, 2022, 5 and 2 is 7. I can put in 2027, and it will tell me that at 60, well, I'll be 60 in 2027, if I can qualify for early pension. Or I can put in at 60, I can put in past 60, it can tell me what my early pension will be at 60, and it can tell me if I don't pay no more contributions, what it will be at 67. So you can make an informed decision whether you want to take it at 60 or wait at 67. If we wait at 67, I'm dead before then, so it may have waited at 67. You take my early pension now at 60, or you can get 243 or more. $1,200 at 243, 12 by 7 years. That's enough money to make this work. Let me take that now, boy. You want to say, just say this is what people, so you can either maybe come into the office and some person may be able to check it on the portal for you, or you can get comfort of your home, you can check it for yourself. You can't check nothing for nobody else, because you can only have a password that you have access to your own earnings. Nationals will have access to everybody, so if you're going, they can check yours for you. You want the same thing, okay? So that's the contributory pension, as it were. Now, if you're working and you pass 67, there's a small percentage that is paid in case you get injured on the job. Some people got some security officers standing by the door that the door propping them up, but they ain't able. But at least, they got somebody to keep their eye out. Yes, okay, so the person passes 67, the employee pays 0.6%, a little smaller percentage. The employer pays 1.25, but they're only entitled to injury. Oh, I missed something earlier. They was dealing with injury. Medical expenses and traveling. Okay? Now, if you are injured on the job, medical expenses and traveling you can claim for life. Once it relates to the same injury, both local and overseas. Now, for medical expenses, that would be like therapy, medication, doctor, whatever else. But it must relate to the injury that you got. So you can't send in bills for catch up and whatever else. You want to say that can relate to the injury easily. Or certain medication that person may be on, the claim for, it doesn't relate to that particular injury. You want, so nationals will be very vigilant. Okay? National will then decide whether they will pay you the full medical expenses or part of it. Okay? Now, if the medical attention that you need is not available in Barbados, then you should get a letter from your doctor indicating that you want to go and get X, Y, and Z. Send it to National Insurance before you leave. Once you can. Okay, so National Insurance will, as it were, agree that on your return, your bills will be examined. Both airfare and the hospital visit and whatever else. Yes, we know that a person can have an injury and have to be shipped out on flying out on an air ambulance, so they got a chance to write a letter and whatever else. That is understood. Nationals will understand that, and they will take it into consideration also. If you're unable to travel alone, because the person might be travel, whoever is going with them, a letter should come from the doctor saying this person cannot travel alone, and therefore that person's airfare will be considered also. After you've paid, then it can be. So that's the overseas side of it, and the local side of it in respect of medical expenses. But then there's the traveling local. Person travel by public transport, we know the bus fare is $3.50, you don't get a ticket. So therefore, if you live in St. Lucie, like where you live, and we get beaten in cricket, I had a trainer piece, and we are going, and it was a fair beat because Mr. Barker, that was the cricket umpire, yes, your brother, he was the umpire, so whatever decisions were made, we knew it was above board, right? Right? But if I'm going to Oysters and travel by bus, I got to take 2 pieces of transportation, so it'll be $7 going and $7 coming. You want what I'm saying? So on the statement, the medical expense statement, I would have visit, the doctor or the therapist or whatever else, traveling from Conhon, St. Lucie to Oysters, wherever else, and back. Therefore, that is $14 that I will be claiming traveling. Okay? If on the other hand I'm using my car and I'm going from St. Lucie to Oysters, that may be 40 kilometers. That's $1.50 per kilometer. And $40 kilometers going back, another 80. That's enough money that I'm losing if I don't claim. If you're traveling by a taxi, it must be a receipt from a registered taxi owner, because National know taxi owners, and have a list of them, because they're going to get claims from National Insurance. And not only a receipt from a registered taxi owner, but it must be relative. So you can't see you traveling from St. Lucie to Bridgetown, and taxi man charge you $300. No. Lesson 36 is a tariff that from there to there is X amount of money, and National will be willing to pay you that amount, maybe slightly more, but it can't be exorbitant. But people figure that Nationals got jokes up there, so you can sign up for $400, if the taxi man charge you $400. If he charge you $400, that's your business. You want to say that your business pay $400, but National will refund you for $400, not for traveling from there, man. The fare is only $70. Give me a break. You want to say that's my money that you want to pay out? We must be sure. So that is the medical expense and traveling. I forgot to mention when I spoke about employment injury. Go back to pensions very quickly. So they said that is the thing. Now, if you're a government officer now, you're going to your statement. This is what is called the Abatement of Pensions Act. Any person who joined the public service before the 15th of September 1975, before you join, I didn't say in continuous, I said join. So if you work 1 day before September, and then you got laid off, and then you came back and started back in government in 2020, you were still there before the 1st of September 1975. But you got to prove that you were there before. Either you got to pay slip, you got income tax, whatever else, or there's some kind of proof. If there's no proof, as it were, in that case, once there are 2 persons who worked with you in that government department, they can sign. The Treasury has affidavits you can collect from the Treasury, and those persons will say, well, they worked with Stephen Strickland in between July, whatever, or 1975, 72, whatever else. 2 persons who work with you who are still alive. You want to say, obviously, will have you alive. And therefore, you can use that as proof. And you're entitled to 2 pensions from National Insurance and from the Treasury. And you can claim your stick up in, make me go through all, so we get everything clear. So that I can give you everything. So that you can claim an early pension at age 60 and still get your pension from the Treasury. Okay? So you can claim an early pension at age 60. Okay? If you came before 1975, so you get a pension from the Treasury at 55, and your gratuity, because once you join before the 1st of 1975, or if you got appointed before 15th of July 1985, you can go up 55 with your gratuity and your pension. But only if you started before the 1st of 1975 can you get both pensions at the same time. So there are those people who joined before the 1st of 1975 are getting, they're not 7ers yet, and they're getting both pensions. I joined in 86, so I only get 1 pension from the Treasury. Because if I claim a pension from National Insurance at age 60, they will tell the Treasury, and the corporates that they give me from the Treasury will be reduced, but we'll get from National Insurance. So it's still back to square one. So in other words, if I'm getting $900 from the Treasury, and National Insurance give me an early pension of $600, National will tell the Treasury they're getting $600, and I will get $6 from National Insurance and $3 from the Treasury, still back to $900. So that makes me claim my early pension. Okay? Don't make sense. So I know if a person I told her not to claim, she went to National Insurance and she asked the question, can I get an early pension? The officer at National Insurance does not care whether you work, where you work or not. That's not none of their business. You asked, so she asked, can you get an early pension? They said to her, yes. Stephen tell me you can't get an early pension. So she applied for the pension. But when she get a short-term pension check from the Treasury, not one looking like that, from the Treasury, she find my house fast enough. I said, I told you not to claim the pension, right? But you said to claim the pension. You know what I do for her then? You have to get a letter, work there at National Insurance, to cancel the pension at National Insurance, then get a letter from National Insurance indicating I am not in receipt of a pension from National Insurance, kept to the Treasury, and the Treasury put her back up to what she was getting before. But when she gets 67 now, she thought no, she can get both. Come back at my house again. Hello. You can get one pension. Okay? So if you get a pension from the Treasury and you didn't come in before the first 1975, at 67 the Treasury will cut you off their pension roll. Cut you off altogether. If your pension now from the Treasury is more than the one from National Insurance, you will get the one from National Insurance and they will pay you the difference between what they were paying you before. This person will come in after the first of 1975. Remember, this person was only entitled to one pension at a time. So there are those people who work in a very high high income bracket. Their pension for the Treasury is half their salary. Is because you only owe those salaries was saving from the beginning. And this is very, very important. You see, remember I said that I told you there's a minimum that you pay national on, there's a maximum also. The maximum being $4,880. So there's some people who work for $8, $9, $10, $15,000. Unfortunately, don't know that they pay only national only on $4,800. So when they retire, they've had a lifestyle of $15,000. Yeah. National insurance pension is secure. They think that they were paying national on $15,000. So when they apply for the maternity benefit, the sickness benefit, or old age pension, it's going to be always calculated on $4,000, a maximum of $4,800. So when you apply for pension, and your maximum earnings is $4,800, and you've been paying a maximum of 60%, you move from an income of $15,000 down to an income of $3,000 whatever. And that just gives people heart attacks. Or someone still got a mortgage, and the mortgage is $4,000 a month, and they ain't getting that in pension from National Insurance, and they have no other investment and whatever else. So it's very important for persons to find some kind of investment, whether it's a life insurance policy, a business on the side, whatever else. So that when, if you're working like an income bracket, so when you reach 67, you can still maintain that lifestyle. Because chances are you got some children who got brand name that drive you crazy. But you're home now all the time, can't get away from them, and they're accustomed to lifestyle, and the husband or wife accustomed to certain lifestyle too, they can drive you crazy. Hello, these are realities. So if you came in after the 1st of 1975, your pension will be stopped by the Treasury at 67. If you're getting less from the Treasury than you were getting from National Insurance, you will not get National Insurance, and you would, okay? Now, that is the pension. Gratuity, as you said, a maximum of 33 to 30 years. So if you were, a woman who would have had maternity benefit, there's always no pay leave. So make sure that if you had children, when you take that 12 weeks here and 12 weeks on them, whatever else, no pay. If you only work 33 to 30 years, that would reduce it to under 33 to 30 years and whatever else. Okay? So make sure that you have, or if you had no pay leave, no pay leave meaning that you were on study leave or something like that. In other words, you had no pay leave. Sickness is not no pay leave as a government officer because you're paid while you're sick. Okay? But if you're a temporary officer, remember, you're only entitled to 14 days sick leave. It is important for you to know that if you are paid your salary because your money goes to your bank, and HR might not tell accounts that you have passed your 14 days, so you might say in the bank, but you get left on the road and you've had overdrawn salary. So if you send a national insurance claim, you are temporary, which you're supposed to send after 14 days, down the road you will get a letter maybe 2 years saying to you that you have overdrawn salary of $6,000 because they pay you more than you should pay you past the 14 days. The claim you are sending to national insurance now is past a year, so you can't even get the sickness benefit from national insurance because you're sending it in late, and that's what careless it was, like coming in late. You can't get the sickness benefit, you still owe government the $4,000 or $5,000 in overdrawn salary. So once you pass 14 days, make sure you submit that claim to national insurance. So when it comes to the whole issue of gratuity, I don't deal with that in respect of calculation. But when it comes to your pension, you're going to be paid half your salary basically in pension from the treasury. But that's provided after 67 is more than national insurance, or that you had joined the public service prior to the 1st of September 1975. Okay? But in my case, I joined in 86. So at 55, I told them good afternoon, goodbye, and left the place. I joined in 86. Because I appointed, I joined in 76, sorry. I joined in 76. But I got appointed in 1980. Sorry. I'm glad that you corrected me. Sorry. I joined in 76, so I missed the 2 pensions. Okay? But I got appointed in 1980. So I was appointed before 1986. Because a lot of people got 85, a lot of people got appointed in 86. So they put it to 85, so then people got this year 60. You understand? So they got up to year 60. So at 55, I was appointed in 1980, so I told them, listen, I love retirement. Best job that I'm going to ever have. I left. And I went long home. Coming back in 2015, because I had some problems with the skin. I went back and helped them for 4 months. They called back and they still give me my pension, or I still get my pension. Okay, can't touch that. And in 2020, I went back again, and I'm still there up until Friday when I went work. Okay? Yes, question.
We are being told that in 12 years, the NAS
Okay. Online. And when she finished asking the question, I can tell her I can't speak to that issue. But come Rowan ask the question.
The NAS is going to be dried up. In 12 years, they're going to be 60. So a lot of people trying to figure out why they didn't pay NAS then if they ain't going to be getting a pension.
As I said, that is what is causing the trauma. And I'm not saying this word lightly. People are traumatized by what is happening. Okay? We knew that there was a falling birth rate. No question about that. Ronald Jones said it back then. He didn't say it because we wanted to say it. The 2004 actuarial study said it. And every 3 years since then, they've been saying it. We should have seen it in Barbados that there's a falling birth rate. Because of our healthcare system in Barbados, we have an aging population. People are 80 and doing aerobics a lot better than the 20-year-olds. You want to We have to be realistic, okay? So I'm saying we are paying pensions longer and whatever else. So certain decisions we did not capture the self-employed people that mushroomed over the last couple of years. Okay, and I spoke at Alexandria on that point. But then there were two decisions that were made. There was the one to increase non-contributory pensions. Yes, we increased now, which I knew we should never have done. Because it meant that when you increase non-contributory pensioners, you were putting them to receive more than a contributory pension. So if you were raising the non-contributory pensioners, it was obvious that you're going to have to raise the contributory pensioners at the bottom. If you raise the differential between the non-contributory and the contributory, I think it was $30 it's only 13 now. And contributory pensions are angry of that. But sufficient that once you raise the non-contributory pension now up to 243 to be more than the non-contributory pension increase, you had to raise all of the pensioners right up to the top. That was a heavy, heavy burden on the national insurance scheme. It was a decision not made by the board, it was a decision made by the person or persons outside of the board. National insurance also would have lent money to government to build police stations, to build whatever else. And the state national was given a haircut. For me, then a haircut, I chop off my whole head. $1.6 billion of national insurance money was written off. So the fund that would have had, because there's something forgot also, national insurance is financed by contributions, is financed by investments. Government paper, whatever else, lending money to it. And they need to lend the money. If you don't lend the money out, it means that you're not going to get much interest. When you lend money out, people get employed, 23.75% of the contributions come back in. You must lend the money. Yeah. You got to make sure when you lend the money out, that you're going to get it back. Yeah. And when you lend out, you're going to turn around and rake it off. Hello. You want to say before? I'm saying so that is part of what has happened. Okay, but National has investments also in real estate. So the Frank Walker building is rented to the Ministry of Health, top floors. The area for Walker building is rented, all the building National is speaking about now, is rented to the Ministry of Civil Service and whoever's up there. The one Towers 2, the electoral office, is rented to all of those government departments that are in there. Bayback Towers, you have corporate affairs and all the other buildings, statistical department in that building. United Nations building on cemeteries, all the owned by National Insurance. So National has its money invested. There's an investment section at National Insurance which invests National Insurance money, and I've done a fantastic job through the years. But then after they've invested, then decisions are taken by personal persons to decide you're going to write off $1.6 billion, okay? And then you give a whole lot to pensioners. I'm glad the pensioners don't make sense, but you give them a whole lot of money when in truth and in fact, every year, while government workers were not getting an increase in salary, pensions were getting an increase to a large extent since 2006. Every year they get an increase, you know, a cost of allowance increase. So it's not the pensioners were being disadvantaged through the years. My mother's a pensioner, she's 91. My grandmother, 7, she's a pensioner too. I'm glad, but I'm saying that they've been getting a pension. But when you get a large amount, because of whatever reasons, which I'm not going to get into right now, but everybody knows, okay? And then we're up $1.6 billion. That is what has brought our scheme, is the falling birth rate and aging population, and several people not paid. That is what has brought our scheme to what it is now. Because in 2004, we were told that if you don't make certain decisions in 2020 or 2022, it will be almost dry. Okay? Now you were told that in 2004. Okay? And I'm not political, I'm not here about parties and the last political meeting, I don't deal with that. But sufficient that these are the harsh realities. And there are those who have spoken about it since I spoke at Alexander School and whatever else. Charles Herbert and some of the people are actually people are knowledgeable. I had a scholarship. I went to a community school, I didn't have scholarship, I didn't answer break. But I got a little common sense and read and write and let's follow trends and whatever else. So this is what every Barbadian needs to be doing. Follow the trends in Barbados so that when things are being said, you can read and write for yourself. I'm not going to be always here. Those other people, but you know, with school, you can read and write. My mother can do that easily. And we can inform one another. So you get it, you're near 60, right? And you're concerned with your pension at age 60. And if pension reform comes right now, they may shift early pension from 60 to 64. Yes, that's on the table too. Then they shift the early pension from 60 to 64. So you will have to wait to 64 to claim early pension. And what so there's a whole lot on the table, which is I am not here to drive more fear in person's heart, but these are the things that are out there, but the decision has not been taken.
Okay, thank you.
Sit down easily now. So ladies and gentlemen,
Just one
to
more.
large extent, no, 1 minute. That has, if you want any other questions, I can answer other questions. But the large extent, that has been my presentation to you. Other than if you come to retirement, prepare to enjoy it. I have 5 cruises in 8 years. I just cruise and enjoy my mind that I work for.
But
Okay.
this one is, by the way,
Yeah,
this one is,
give him 15 minutes. Right, go ahead.
this one is, by the way, I hear you talk about the older folks and I mean by the pensioners increase. So when I look at it now, I wonder if this is why that the plan, the pandemic for the older folks now that dying. No, I know that just
It's a plan, they will die.
that the plan that the older folks that are dying now that taking pension so they won't go pay out that.
Well, listen, just many young ones that died of COVID, and many died not of COVID, young ones, they died of COVID, they died of a gunshot and whatever else. You want to say saying, okay? We count the number of deaths from COVID, but we don't count the amount of deaths in Barbados every day, right? You want to say saying there's a lot of deaths in Barbados of young ones who ain't get, who will not get anything. So the older ones, a lot of older ones will in, right? So, right, you want to make sure that you don't know about what I personally, I have 7. And I'm going to my mother house easily, right? One people want to kill somebody, no. Stay where you live. Even my mother wants grandchildren, stay where you all live. Don't come and get you the COVID. You want to, so I'm saying, I can agree with what you're saying, but I'm saying that a lot of younger ones are dying. We are not counting, okay? Because only 500 someone that died in my race of COVID so far, 500 something, right? Right? And I can tell you, nearly about a quarter of them in pensioners. They're pensioners. You want the same thing. But that's the reality. Yes, sir. No, you go ahead. If you got another question, well, but he said that was by the way.
It's one thing now.
That was by the way. My answer was by the way. And those are off the records.
You partially answered the question because the pastor would have spoken to me about this because I am at the door of pensionhood. But the whole question about appointment, because I was made to understand that before 1975, I can't remember the month you said, September 1975, that you can opt to go home at 55. But then you're saying that you started in 1976. But yet you were able to, because...
So far, the two pieces of legislation. There's another one supposed to be coming. It's supposed to be coming. For government workers again. You want the same thing. Whereby government workers may have to go up to whatever. So, and that is separate to national insurance pension reform. Okay? Because that was mentioned before national insurance pension reform start talking about. You want the same thing. There was this thing that you got within 40 years and a whole lot of things for gratuity. Okay? So there was the legislation that was written prior to 1985, which would have said in 1975, if you came in after the first of if you came in before the first of 1975, you were entitled to about 55 with your gratuity and your pension. Afterwards, another piece of legislation was written that if you got appointed in if you got appointed after the 15th of July 1985, because remember, if you came in after first of 1975, you only entitled to one pension at a time. 55, I think. But then they gave the ones who got appointed before 1985 to still go up 55 to the pension gratuity, but still only one pension. Right. So that's where I fell in. I got appointed in 1980. But appointments came out in 1985. A lot of appointments came in 76. A lot of appointments came in. A lot of people got jobs in 1976. You know, that was election year. And then if a lot of appointments came in 1986. You want the same thing. So those persons that would have got appointed in 1986 have to go up to 60. Okay? But I got appointed in 1980. And therefore, I went at 55. So there were two sets that were given the opportunity to go at 55 to gratuity and pension. The one before 1975, the one before 1980. All of them. But only the ones prior to the first 1975 could get two pensions at the same time.
So basically, those who were appointed by 1986 could have still gone at 55?
No, because they would have had to be appointed before 1980, effective of June 1985.
I mean, 85 is why.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
85 is why.
There were no appointments in 1985, they were 86.
Right.
Okay.
But I see, because you want to know what bearing does appointment have to do with it, because I kept hearing that you had to be appointed by that particular year in order to be able to leave after 55 or 60.
1985, not 1975. 1975, first and you just had to be working in government, appointed or not. Okay. Once you were working in 1985, I know some person who had worked in July to September 1985. Okay, July to September. The person only worked for 3 months, but got a job in government then about 4 years afterwards, as it were. But the person was able to get both pensions. You want to say because they were able to get affidavits to prove and whatever else that they had worked in 1985. I mean, prior to the first of 1985. So 1985 has nothing to do with continuous or appointment. You just had to be working. You prove that you worked prior to the first of 1975 to qualify for both pensions. Okay? And once that was so, you can go up 55 with a gratuity and pension.
I missed that by 9 years.
If you came after, you want to say, came after, but you were appointed before 15th of July 1985, you can still go up 55 with a gratuity and pension.
But with one pension.
But with one pension.
I got that clear.
Thank you very much. Getting ready to cruise. Right? And I had 5 of them in the 8 years of the home. Yes! They want ban me from the ship. Excuse me. My children work for that. I work for that. Thank you very much. I carry them on one of them too. You want to say, but I'm just showing you, prepare to enjoy your retirement. So, ladies and gentlemen who are here and those who are online, it was a joy, speaking to you. Please share the information with those that are close to you, especially those who are self-employed. Please, for their own sake, please encourage them to pay contributions. Get it from them and pay in. Yes, ma'am. The pastor? He won't ask a question. I hope anybody treasury. Go ahead.
No, this is dirty not good. I have retired over 15 and a half years. And I came into the service long before 1975.
That's beautiful.
I am out of most of that. But I just want to say thank you for your intervention this evening. It was really thought-provoking, and thankfully we can go back and listen to some of it. I know you've come from very far.
No. St. Michael is far, not St. Lucie. Go ahead. Continue.
I retract that then. But I know you come from a long way, let me put it that way, and I give thanks that you're able to enlighten us on a lot of issues, and your contribution has been well received. Unfortunately, I cannot be, well, not that I cannot be, they're not going to let me into the church right.
Precisely.
But I was able to, listen in. And on the point of being in the treasury, let me tell you that when it comes to pensions after 15 and a half years, there's a lady whom we both know that I defer when it comes to pension matters.
With the same surname.
Same surname.
Also, that's Mrs. Strickland at the treasury.
That's correct.
So she's a treasurer at National Insurance. And that's how I've been able to glean a lot of the information that I've spoken to you about the treasury, because very often when she would have had requests to do presentations in respect of pensions and gratuity, she would have invited me along to do the national insurance section of the presentation. So I would have been privileged to sit and listen to her, and vice versa. When I have a presentation, way back then when I had a presentation, like now, I would have had to have invited her to come and speak this afternoon, and she would have come along with me and speak on pension and gratuity. But having both of us hearing a lot from both sides, I am pretty well versed on the treasury side. Not that she's versed on the national insurance side, but she knows a lot about national insurance, having sat in on the thing. So when persons ask questions, I refer them to her. And when she has questions about national insurance, she will refer them to me. Thank you very much, Mr. Barker.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Back over to you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Okay, so it was a joy and a privilege to be here, and I should be having one on the 15th of September. I cannot give you it's going to be on Zoom. I can't give you the location because they have not done the flyer and whatever yet. So I am awaiting that Zoom on the 15th, but they may have a platform of only 100, so they might not be willing to share it. I should be having a host one at our church because my church members have been castigating me, telling me if more talk to everybody, they're talking to us. So they want a full presentation, which I should be doing sometime maybe next month, and that will be last for the year that I'm doing it this month. If National Insurance want to pay me to go and do them, I'm available. But I have all been doing them free of cost, which, has, for me, has been beneficial to the people of Barbados, because that's how my mother raised me as a Christian. But there's something called intellectual property rights, so that my presentations are not to be shared for the benefit of sale or use by persons for financial gain. I want to be very, very clear, because persons will take it and use it to make financial gain from, which I think is really unfair and unethical. But it can be shared for persons to some extent for their personal knowledge. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant night. Sure. I'm going to enjoy hearing this from her.
Good evening once again. Pastor Strickland, I thank you tremendously on behalf of the members of Shalem Evangelical Church, and our missionary department this evening. You have given us a wealth of information, and my old school motto was, and I always live by up to this day, knowledge is power. And indeed, knowledge is power. And I feel very powerful this evening for all the knowledge that I learned from you this evening. I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us here. I know that we now have a wealth of information that we did not have 2 hours ago. And it is information that we will take with us, we will share with our families. And there's a lot of things that we were totally illiterate to the facts, but now we are educated about it, and I thank you very much. I have something for you, but I guess I will present it to you on your way down, as you can see my challenges right now coming to you. But once again, thank you so much for sharing all the information that you have shared with us this evening, and just know that we do greatly appreciate it, and thank you once again for coming.
You're
Have
welcome.
a good evening and travel safe.
You were a very engaging audience also. I really enjoyed the interaction between you. But in case you and I work at National Insurance next week because somebody said, then happen. Okay? Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Father, we give you thanks for a wonderful evening, having a discussion on a very important subject matter. We thank you for sending to us Pastor Strickland to educate us and to have us better informed on such matters. We pray that as he goes, that we will take him safely to his destination. And all of us here, Lord, as benefited, we pray as we go as well, you will take us away safely. And those that are not well, those are cohabited, and so on, and various other illnesses, we pray that you will be with them and touch them in a special way as well. As we go, we